Folks, sorry to interrupt. I know you're all having good conversation, but we're not sure exactly who intends to speak tonight, so I direct you to Chris Armstrong there by the door. If you intend to speak tonight, please see Chris and submit your name. Please print it so that I can read it if you haven't done it already. And we'll convene the meeting here in a couple more minutes. So just wanted to make that announcement. Thank you. All right. Thank you for being here. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Jeremy Ashcraft.
Here.
Bob Bishop.
Here.
Joe Buck.
Here.
Gary Fox.
Here.
Charlie Hastings.
Here.
Chuck Liddell.
Here.
Teresa Popejoy.
Present.
Approval of minutes.
I don't have any minutes there weren't any minutes sent in the email packet.
I have an extra copy here.
Mayor Franklin, I'll move that the minutes be approved as submitted.
Second. It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, call for the vote.
Jeremy Ashcraft.
No.
Bob Bishop.
Yes.
Joe Buck.
Yes.
Gary Fox.
Yes.
Charlie Hastings.
Yes.
Chuck Liddell.
I'm going to abstain. I haven't read them yet.
Teresa Popejoy.
Yes.
The minutes are approved on a vote of 5 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstain. Under comments of the mayor, I want to advise those in attendance that the public hearing regarding the Utility Service Board recommendation to adopt Ordinance 2013-7 will begin immediately upon introduction of the ordinance. So it's going to be presented just a little bit later into the agenda here, but we will be conducting a public hearing, and at that time we will give an opportunity to speak. Are there any petitions or comments of citizens? All right. Are there any reports from committees, boards, or commissions? Okay. There is no old business. Under new business, Councilman Bishop, please.
Ordinance 2013-6, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Logansport, Indiana, approving the changes in the residential trash collection fee in the City of Logansport, Indiana. Your Honor, I call for a vote on Ordinance 2013-06.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion?
Your Honor, I'd like to make an amendment to Ordinance 2013-06. I'd like to make a motion to amend, having removed Section 9, this ordinance supersedes Ordinance 2010-31 in its entirety. When we discussed this in committee, we talked about limiting the trash fee to $10 for the year 2013. Then we would go through the next budget cycle and see where we were, and if we needed to continue with the old ordinance, we would. So my motion is just to strike Section 9 from this ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion among council?
We were just, we look at this that we can either strike that, or we would have to change the dates on that. Our purpose really wasn't to, if we left it the way it is now, if we didn't change that the following year, the trash fees would go to 0, which I'm okay with that, but we'll have to take that up at the time. So we can either change the date on that, or we can change the amend it as Chuck suggested. So.
And you do have time to revisit it at some point in the future.
That's right. Either way, we're going to have to revisit it for the next year's budget.
Is there any further discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote on the amendment first.
Jeremy Ashcraft.
Yes.
Bob Bishop.
Yes.
Joe Buck.
Yes.
Gary Fox.
Yes.
Charlie Hastings.
Yes.
Chuck Liddell.
Yes.
Teresa Popejoy.
Yes.
Okay, the amendment passes on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Now the ordinance in its entirety, please.
Jeremy Ashcraft,
Yes.
Bob Bishop,
Yes.
Joe Buck,
Yes.
Gary Fox,
Yes.
Charlie Reese.
Yes.
Chuck Liddell.
Yes.
Teresa Fulcher.
Yes.
Ordinance 2013-6 passes on a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Now, ordinance 2013-07. After the ordinance is read by council, I'm going to invite Paul Hartman to come before you and make a presentation. So ordinance 2013-7, Councilman Hastings, please.
Ordinance number 2013-7, an ordinance authorizing the mayor with the advice and consent of the common council to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Prolizer LLC and further to negotiate a BOT agreement with Prolizer LLC regarding an electric generating plant repowering and expansion project, all in accordance with the recommendation of the Utility Service Board of the City of Logansport. Your Honor, I'll call for a first vote on ordinance 2013-07.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. At this point, I would like to ask Paul Hartman, Superintendent of Logansport Municipal Utilities, to come forward.
As per the ordinance, the Logansport Municipal Utility Service Board met on January 29th and voted 5-0 for the city to enter into a memorandum of understanding. The presentation that we have tonight would proceed in 4 different ways. The first one would be a presentation by John Scomp of Crow Horvath to look at the revenue requirements of the Lutz, Daly, and Brain report that a lot of comments have been submitted about. Second would be Alvaro Almuina with our consulting group to give a presentation on their recommendation to the board and the city council. The third would be Frank from Powerlizer Group to present the actual proposal from Powerlizer. And the fourth one would be Ask Me and Richie Halfacre to present what his recommendation is as far as the LMU employees. If there's any questions along the way, feel free to ask. If you have none for me, I'll go ahead and get the rest of the presentation started. With that, I'd like to ask John Scomp to come up.
Good evening. I'm John Scomp with Kroll Horwath, and Paul asked me to speak briefly tonight on the preliminary analysis we did on the revenue requirements from the Lutz, Daly, and Brain report that they had put in last July. We presented a report to the utility board on November 27th of last year, and basically what we did is if you took the Lutz, Daly, and Brain report, and I'll call it the Lutz report from here on out. We took the recommendations that had been accepted by the board in that report. They had accepted the report in July. They asked us to run the revenue requirement of the rate impact that the various scenarios would have that were presented in that report. There are basically 4 scenarios that were presented. The first scenario being buying all of our requirements or all of our service needs from Duke. That was the first scenario that was in there, and there were 3 scenarios that had various self-build type of things, building different ways to structure the generation here at Logansport by either cogeneration or converting the plants to natural gas, those type of things. I'll speak briefly. As we looked at it as just as a baseline. We looked at what the utility needed as a rate increase then, given the numbers that the Lutz had provided us. And the baseline was basically about an 18% increase just as is. If we went to a full requirements contract with Duke, meaning we buy all of our power from them, it related to about a 96.5% increase in rates. I said all the assumptions that were in our analysis were taken forward from the Lutz report. The board had accepted that report from Lutz, and we just took their numbers, came back and did a financial analysis of what those would mean if we accepted those. Now, all 4 scenarios, we looked at the rate impact on full build-out of those scenarios. The Lutz report actually had a 5-year transition, so it showed year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5 of how you would actually transition into those. we looked at the scenarios on full build-out of those, and instead of trying to, compare the different rate impacts they would have at various points in time, it really was important to understand what the impact would be of full build-out, and that was 2019 as they had showed it. I said the full power requirements from Duke, meaning we bought all of our requirements from them, were about 96.5% increase. The three scenarios of maybe building a plant or retrofitting our current plants, scenarios 2, 3, and 4 they had were from about 95% to 121% in their impact. And I said briefly we've had some questions about how our analysis compared to what's going on now with the things that are being put together in the current proposal. Basically what it was is that the Lutz report had brought forth some scenarios about what they could do if they did not, of what the utility could do if they did not find an alternative source of power. We looked at the master plans they had put together, came up with anywhere from a 96 to 121% increase with the scenarios that Lutz brought to us. I think the board at that time decided to look to another alternative, which is the one that's being discussed this evening. There's been some questions about our report, but basically it was a financial analysis of the recommendations that were brought forward in the Lutz report. Most of the numbers in our report came from the Lutz firm. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about our analysis and how we performed that. And if not, I can turn it over to the next speaker this evening.
So what would you say of those four options? What did we determine what was the best option? Did we determine that?
Well, I think the fourth option had the lowest rate impact. If you would have had 95% instead of a 96%, I mean.
Which one was it to go to natural gas?
I think 3 and 4, alternatives 3 and 4 had some natural gas.
And that was like 94.6 or something like that?
One of them had 121%, one of them was at 96. If you needed more detail about the scenarios that were in there, I'm an accountant, I'm not the engineer. I really need to have you ask the Lutz folks how the engineering folks there, how they came up with those scenarios. But as far as the rate impact, 3 of them were right there together, 95, 96%.
Right.
And then there was one that had some other things built into it that went up to 121%. But
as far as what the Utility Service Board did, they never really acted on that report and chose which option was better or not. They just accepted the report in total. They didn't really like the idea of increasing rates at this point,
right,
since we're not really competitive in our electric rates anyway. So at this time, they didn't decide which one was better.
Yeah, I think once we saw the 95% figure, I think that we started looking for alternatives then, right?
At the same exact meeting that John made that presentation is when we also agreed to issue an RFP.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for John? If not, I'd ask Alvaro Almuina.
Thank you, John.
To come up and give the presentation from the study group.
Alvaro, can you tap your microphone to see if it's working? Can you move it closer? All right. Check. Yeah, better.
Somebody want to hit that light? Are you going to do a presentation here?
I'm just going to, I have some slides that I want to use.
Just that.
That's better.
Fine by me.
For those of you in the back, if you're having a problem hearing, please let me know and we'll try to adjust it by moving the microphone even closer.
Good evening, Mayor Franklin, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and present the study team recommendations on the power plant study. My name is Alvaro Almuina. I am the project manager, and I'm here with some of my colleagues from the study team, Bob Hunt, Ken Borneman, Steve Henshin, and Bernie Paul. I want to take a few minutes to walk you through the objectives and the process that we followed and how we came about to a recommendation to the LMU board. The challenge that Logansport faces right now is that there are new environmental regulations in place. That in itself has affected your ability to produce power at a competitive rate. There's an impending energy crisis by 2016, which is when the existing power plant is to be shut down. And all of this affects the economic survival of the municipality. So we were asked and we were charged with a task to find a solution to this impending energy crisis, while at the same time ensuring that the LMU had the capability to produce power at a cost less than 5.5 cents per kilowatt hour, that the power be produced using renewable fuels, that there be sufficient reliability in the power generation such that customers would not face blackout periods or any period where there just wasn't the availability to use energy. And in doing so, ensure that there's economic development available to Logansport through either the expansion of new businesses or new businesses altogether, both of which will result in more jobs. The timelines, as John introduced in his presentation, the electricity master plan was presented in the summer of 2012. We then presented on the 27th of November our feasibility study, which was entitled Affordable Energy Production from Renewable Fuels. The day after, there was a notice of request for proposals put out by the city for interested vendors to supply basically a power plant to Logansport, meeting the very key objectives that the study team had been working with. Those proposals were due on January 11th of this year. Between the 12th and the 27th of January, the study team reviewed those submissions and came forward with a recommendation to the LMU board on the 29th of January. A public notice was prepared and put out to the media on January 30th, which I believe was published on or about the 4th or the 5th of February, or around that time. And there have been 3 council meetings since then, a meeting on February 4th, a committee meeting on February 6th, and today's meeting, February 14th, being the official public meeting on this project. On January 11th, the team received 6 submissions in response to the RFP call from November 28th, 2012. And those are the companies that submitted are listed up there. I won't go through them to respect your time. The team evaluated the submissions following a 3-step process. The first part was to do a validity check, or just to ensure that the submission that was presented met substantially the requirements of the RFP. If it did so, we would move on to part 2, which was a technical analysis, and reviewed the overall technical component of the submission in terms of the team that was presenting, the project management, in terms of the development of the power plant, the overall approach, and how they expected to design and implement the power plant. And we then evaluated the concept from the point of view of the financial aspects. So from January 12th to the 21st, the study team evaluated the submissions, and we met on the 22nd to the 25th as a team to discuss our submissions and develop an overall recommendation to the LMU board. The study team interviewed 3 of the firms that submitted proposals, and not only did we interview them once, but we made them go through a second interview to ensure that, or give them the opportunity to clarify or address questions that were raised by the study team during the first interview process. Our recommendation was to move forward with the Paralyzer LLC proposal for a number of reasons, including that they provided a full response to the RFP requirements, had a cost-effective total project cost, guaranteed an initial electricity rate to the LMU below the 5.5 cent per kilowatt hour cost. That was one of the objectives. They were willing to bring on board existing LMU staff to operate their power plant, has the financial backing to undertake this assessment or this study, and they also had a shorter implementation schedule for bringing the power plant online, which is something that is very critical to us right now, which I'll touch on later on in my presentation. On the 29th of January, the team presented to the LMU board a recommendation that the LMU board and the city execute an MOU with Pyrolyzer. That's a memorandum of understanding. And that we move forward then to the development of a public-private partnership through a build, operate, transfer format, or a BOT. The BOT means that Pyrolyzer will be responsible for building and operating the power plant. In summary, although we are talking about the production of power, what the power plant project is really about is avoiding an energy crisis. It's about the independence of the LMU and the control to produce power and to sell power to its customers at competitive rates. It's about having a stabilized rate over the next 20 years or so. It's about keeping existing jobs at the LMU. It's about keeping the city from having to issue bonds to deliver the development of a power plant, so that funds are then available for other city capital projects. And it's also about creating new jobs at existing businesses and new jobs from new businesses that move in when we have competitive rates available to industry. Above that, we also have benefits which include just improving the overall quality of life in Logansport, with more people employed, a greater tax base, having a state-of-the-art fuel processing, green-powered facility, meeting and exceeding the environmental quality regulations that are in place today, and removing the uncertainty in terms of the price of electricity in the long term. Because as it is today, the market-driven prices are very volatile. Since the feasibility study was released in November 2012, the study team answered over 100 questions on this project. These were questions from the public at large. Some of these questions tended to be repeated. So with the mayor and council's blessing, I'd like to take a few more minutes and touch on these questions again, because clearly they're on the minds of residents of Logansport, and we'd like to address them one more time. The specific questions that tended to come up on a regular basis are, is the city responsible for the cost of this project? Does the city have to pay back the cost of this project over a long period of time, or over a period of 20 years? What is the cost of the study? What is the schedule? Has the public been consulted as the study has progressed? Can we buy cheaper elsewhere, either through natural gas or through other electricity providers? Can we use natural gas instead of refuse-derived fuel? And is the technology that has been selected reliable? The thing that must be understood clearly is that there is no financial impact on the municipality from this project. The city is not responsible for any cost associated with the development and construction and operation of this power plant. From the outset, that has been the study team's recommendation, and that is why we recommended in the feasibility study of November 27 that this process move forward through the build, operate, transfer agreements that are in place in P3 arrangements, public-private partnerships. There are no payments that are being made on a monthly basis or a yearly basis over time from the city back to Pyrolyzer as part of the BOT agreement. Quite simply, all that is going to happen is that the city is going to be guaranteeing buying power from Pyrolyzer at set prices, and Pyrolyzer will in turn guarantee that they will be delivering that electricity to the municipality. In terms of project schedule, the study team commenced phase 1, which was the feasibility study. We commenced that on November 5th, 2012. As I've already mentioned to you, we delivered a report on November 28th, and the day after that, there was a public meeting as well as the issuance of the RFP to move on to phase 2. Phase 2 commenced on December 10th, and that entailed the request for proposal process, and that is anticipated currently to be completed on March 4th. Phase 3 would involve the development of the BOT agreement, and we anticipate that timelines for that to be between March and December. These are all tentative timelines. And then phase 4 would be the actual implementation of the power plant, and the schedule for that will be defined as there is dependent on what happens at the completion of Phase 2 and Phase 3. The other question that has come up was around the study costs in terms of the feasibility study and the RFP process. These costs were actually responded to in one of the question and answer sessions that have been posted in the LMU's website, particularly issue number 4, which was posted January 19th. And as you see, the costs in front of you for Phase 1 and Phase 2 are just shy of $760,000. It's important to note that an evaluation and a process of this type involves quite a number of disciplines and levels of expertise. And our study team comprises of a number of experts totaling approximately 300 years of combined experience in delivering municipal infrastructure projects. And we have expertise from the power industry, from environmental regulations and permitting, market analysis, really understanding what the energy market is about and what things cost, about development and construction finance, about economic development, land development, engineering, law, and project management. One of the other questions that tended to come up on more than one occasion was public consultation. As I mentioned earlier in my presentation, the day after we made our recommendation to LMU board on November 27th, on 28th, we then held a public meeting on the 29th of November 2012. It was a very well-attended meeting with residents asking a lot of questions of the study team. We sat at this table and had a very open discussion with members of the public. Since then, the city has held 4 public meetings, 2 LMU board meetings and 2 city council meetings where the power plant project was discussed, and to date no decisions have been made on this project. There will be at least 2 more meetings before you decide on the future of this project, today's meeting and March 4th. And all meetings have been conducted in accordance with Indiana public access laws. Further, there was a notice of public hearing published in the local media, as I mentioned earlier, in early February. Today, February 14th, is that public hearing. In addition to that, the LMU website has been posting reports, questions and answers that we received, or questions that we received from the public at large with study team answers to those questions. We've answered well over 100 questions already, and there's other information on there. It's a very well-populated website with regards to the project. The study team itself has been available to the media from the outset. I myself have been interviewed a number of times by the print media, and I've been a guest speaker at the Talk of the Town radio show. It's in all our interest to inform the public of what's going on in this project, and I know the city wants the public to be aware of this opportunity and what it really means to Logansport. The other question that came up often was why don't we just use natural gas, or why don't we just buy energy from somebody else, be it a Duke or other electricity providers. Well, natural gas prices are very unpredictable, and although they may be very low today, there's no guarantee that that will be the case tomorrow. Since 2004, the price of natural gas has been as high as almost $14 per million BTUs, British thermal units, and as low as $2 per million BTUs. The trading market, or the NYMEX as it's called, is expecting natural gas prices to more than double in just over a decade. The LMU and its customers cannot afford this instability in their prices. And buying from others is also not a cheaper option, because although what appears to be cheaper pricing is often quoted, that is just the energy cost to purchase. There's then a cost associated to that for delivery, and often renders that cost too high or uncompetitive for Logansport. I have a few graphs just to give you an example of that. This is a spot price at Henry Hub based on a study done by the Energy Information Administration. This is a federal government agency. You see some of these spikes. You can see how at one time it was as low as $2 and now as high as close to $10 in this particular case. Regardless of which forecast one is looking at, you're looking at well over somewhere to 2 to 3 times the price for natural gas over the next 20 years. A separate study based on NYMEX Again, gives you very similar results in terms of the price of gas, whereas today you might be, and this is the purchase price. This is, again, not the price, the delivered price, but what you would be buying it on the market. It's called a published price. And although it may be as low as $2 to $3 today, again, that is expected to be as high as around the $8 mark in about a 20-year time frame. Again, not something that is of benefit to Logansport. Just another example based on the NYMEX information of the volatility of gas. And what's happened here is this first curve, this first peak that you see here around the end of December. That was Katrina. That's what one hurricane did to the price of natural gas. Basically, it went from about $6 to $14 in a very short timeline. The second spike was just based on some bad news on oil reserve information, which again, anticipating a high demand, natural gas prices shot up again. This is not the kind of instability that customers would expect, and the LMU cannot service customers based on these prices. Notwithstanding the volatility, when you move forward into the future and forecast pricing, you tend to average things out, and even looking at the future over the next 20 years, again, NYMEX is predicting gas to be around the $8 range over a 20-year period. Again, a significant increase from today. This graph is a brief analysis to show you the difference between the cost of power cost, the electricity, to the LMU from MISO compared to what it would cost based on the paralyzer forecasts. So the dotted lines, the yellow and the middle dotted line, the color escapes me right now, are your capacity and your energy costs, which when you add them together, you get the top line, which is that dashed purple line. That is your all-in cost of power. When you compare that to what electricity would cost based on the paralyzer forecast that we've undertaken, you see that from the outset, from day one, we're about 35% cheaper, and then that spread can go as high as 65 over a 20-year period.
And that pyrolyzer price is all in also?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, this is apples to apples, exactly. And when you look at things from another point of view in terms of taking the master plan recommendations as John presented them and look at just the cost of electricity over a 20-year time frame and compare it to what the electricity cost to the LMU would be from the Powerlizer proposal, you're looking at about half the cost of electricity by going the Powerlizer route. The other question that came up often was about the technology. Is the technology that has been selected, is that proven? Is it reliable? So let me just break this up quickly, and the intent of this graphic is, and I apologize if it's more confusing than not, but trying to break down producing electricity. It's pretty straightforward. We produce steam or gas, that fires the turbines, which work the generators, which produces electricity. It's that simple. So when we look at how the Powerlizer process works is we have a feedstock through municipal solid waste, which is then sorted for RDF, for refuse-derived fuel, and that is what's used in the process. Then through the production stages, there's a gasifier, which is what produces the gas, is then pyrogas, is then fed into the combustion turbines, which produces steam. The steam is passed on to the steam turbines, and both the combustion turbine running on gas and the steam turbine running on steam produce electricity, and those go out on the grid. The generator, I'll start from the right-hand side and work to the left. The generators that are on Mr. Canterbury's team that he has brought on his proposal are produced by Emerson. It's a 20-some billion dollar operation, U.S. and in the U.S. They've been around for a long time. Emerson Electric is a household name. So there's no question that technology is proven. As we move to the turbines that are in the proposal are General Electric turbines. GE is about a $200 billion operation. Again, not a small player in the electricity market. The RFD process, again, there's over 100 plants in the U.S. hundreds of plants around the world, that technology is proven, which then moves to the production aspect of it, or the paralyzer, or the pyrolysis process, which is the KUG paralyzer. And Mr. Canterbury will talk more about this, but what I can say about that is that it has been vetted by a U.S. operation that has certified the paralyzer process, and it is also insured by a very large European insurance company, HDI Gerling. So, as I said, the gasifier process has been vetted and it's insured. The electric components of the process involve well-known industry names. And to answer the question, is this a proven system, all tied in together? Very much so it is. And the other thing to keep in mind is that the technology risk is not on the city's shoulders, it's on Paralyzer LLC's shoulders to ensure that that works, and it works well. In addition to that, this process has some significant environmental benefits and reliability on top of that. Pyrogas, which is a synthetic gas, has been certified as a replacement for natural gas, and the emissions from this gas are as good as what comes out when you burn natural gas. Also, the reliability is such that if for whatever reason the pyrogas is not doing its job, the system itself, by flipping a switch, can then be run with natural gas without any modification or interruption to LMU customers. I'm almost done. The other question that came up is that about incineration. The label that this particular process is about incineration. Well, incineration, well, first of all, this process is not trash incineration. Incineration is burning waste in an open flame with high volumes of air. It creates a number of gases and emissions that have to be controlled and treated as they are released, and it is not what we're talking about here. Pyrolysis is not burning. It is heat applied to an enclosed container or vessel where there is no oxygen. And basically you go from a solid to a gas. And that gas is then, well, as you saw in the previous chart, moves on to generate the turbines, to fuel the turbines. Pyrolysis doesn't use all of the MSW. It picks that part of the municipal solid waste that has the proper burning characteristics that are needed to create the heat to produce the gas. It's a cleaning, burning synthetic gas, and it burns, as I said, like natural gas, and it's highly efficient and has very low emitting emissions. I hope the previous slides were helpful to Council in addressing again some of the key issues that came up from members of the public. In terms of where we go from here, March 4th will be a second meeting by City Council to address the recommendation that has been made to the LMU board and that has been brought in front of you. Should you decide to move forward at that time with this project, we would begin phase 3, which is really about the development of the necessary agreements and have those in place to bring back to you for final approval. After that process, we'll have phase 4, which is basically the commencement of the construction, and the current timelines would have it starting in late 2013 in terms of the implementation process, begin the permitting process and the design process. My final, or the team's final thoughts to you on this is that Logansport is in an impending energy crisis. The study team has looked at the reasonable and feasible options to address this crisis, and what is in front of you in terms of the recommendation to use Paralyzer LLC is the best solution. It's the best solution for the community as a whole. And I can't stress enough, this is about economic survival in the long term. I believe it was Councillor Hastings who said last week that industry has been leaving over the last decades or so over time. We want to bring them back, and we know that competitive energy prices will do that.
And this town does not look anything that it looked like when I was a child in the early 60s, mid-60s. Not even close.
The LMU's existing coal plant must be shut down by 2016. It might remain in operation for an additional year if the city begins to build a new power plant. Time really is running out. And I say that for these reasons. As I said, the plant has to be shut down by January of 2016. You might get an extension of a year if Logansport builds a new power plant. We anticipate that if all goes well, the Pyrolyzer LLC power plant would be online around October 2017. And then, as you know, the contract with Duke Energy would expire in December of 2018. So we don't have, I mean, 2017 is almost around the corner in terms of construction years. So we really are very tight on time. This is the best option to keep moving forward, and we encourage you to keep moving forward with this initiative. Delays to the timelines, delays to the process might result in lost opportunities, impacts through higher energy rates to your customers, to the LMU's customers, and loss of confidence from the investment community. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Alvaro or the team?
On the timeline, it's been discussed a lot about, we're going to take a vote tonight, and then we have another one on March 4th, and then this will approve you to start the MOU.
That's
and
correct.
then I think we need to make clear that the council, that's not the last say on this, that we will have one or two more votes
That's
as far
correct.
as we have to prove the contract.
That's correct. And the contract will be brought back to you for your review
Just want to
and
make
your
the
approval.
point that this next two votes doesn't mean we're out of it.
Not at all. No,
So
the next two
The community
votes,
knows that there's still more input here.
absolutely.
Your next two votes are to begin the negotiation phase.
Right.
If there are no other questions, I'd like to ask Frank Canterbury.
I'd like one more
Pyrolyzer.
question for
Okay,
you.
go ahead.
Can you actually explain in any more detail about the insurance process for Pyrolyzer? Insuring that process. Can you explain that anymore, or how that's insured? Because I think that's one of the biggest concerns as being not proven on this scale. I think people want to know that that we have insurances on that.
As part of the BOT agreement and as part of the MOU, there will be clauses in there where a Pyrolyzer LLC would have to issue bonds, be it performance bonds or bid bonds, that to the city to guarantee their performance on delivering what it is they say they would be delivering as part of their proposal. So there would be that available.
And if they don't deliver?
I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that it's in everybody's best interest for this to work. It is a proven system. There's no reason why they wouldn't deliver. And if they don't deliver, then well, you can flip the switch in their system to natural gas until
Right.
another solution is found. But there are built-in
But there's
alternatives.
also, and I know this part is not tied down yet. That's what you're getting ready to move on to. But we also talked about if we did have to flip over to natural gas, that extra cost. There are some assurances that we're not on the hook for that.
That's correct. The city would not be responsible for any cost above and beyond what would have been agreed to
Okay.
under the power purchase agreement.
Thank you.
And that, the way I see it, worst case scenario is we go to natural gas. And out of the four proposals that were given us, that was our best case scenario, was to go to natural gas.
Under the master plan.
Right.
Yeah, but that involved using the existing power
Right.
plant and so on. So, yeah.
And that also included using LMU and the city's own money.
Exactly. We would have been on the hook for anywhere from $20 to $105 million to implement natural gas power for Logansport. This way, the vendor now has the responsibility to bring the power plant online with the capability of a natural gas backup.
Correct.
Thank you.
I didn't see a point when there was signing of contracts. At what phase would that happen?
That would be phase three.
Phase
We
three,
would
at the
develop,
end of phase
we would
three.
develop the BOT agreements and the power purchase agreements, and we would bring those back to council to review, and when you're happy with it, then they would be executed.
And I think most people will be pleased to know that the jobs will be saved by the utility workers. They've worked hard over these years, and they deserve to keep their jobs.
And under the current proposal, there would be an additional 30 or so jobs added in the power plant.
That's a win-win.
I want to thank you for the chart on the comparison with, between this plant and the other alternatives. I think that kind of that's been another big question on what if we went to MISO or, so I think I appreciate that chart there.
As soon as I get that from Alvaro tomorrow.
Paul, could you move the microphone closer?
As soon as I get that from Alvaro tomorrow, I'll make sure that I get it to you and also put it on our website.
Thanks.
Thanks, Paul.
Are there any other questions for Alvaro? With that, I'd like to ask Frank Canterbury from Pyrolyzer to have a brief presentation on his proposal. Thank you, Frank.
Do you have a USB in it? Yes. Sir, I think I took it out. Thank you for bearing with me. My name is Frank Canterbury. I'm president of Pyrolyzer LLC. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come and address the council and review my proposal for a power plant in Logansport. To introduce Pyrolyzer, we're a clean energy solution company. Our mission is to supply renewable energy right now, today. And our company focus is on greenfield energy plants and reduce what goes into landfills. There are some key metrics that are driving the waste to energy market. We have escalating prices of fossil fuels, high waste disposal costs, regulatory initiatives to close landfills, a need to reduce emissions, and there are financial incentives currently for producing renewable energy. So waste management is a key business fundamental for cost efficiency of any organization, industry, cities, anyone who produces waste. Why are we looking at waste to energy? Because we get the same base load pattern as coal or nuclear. As long as you feed this system fuel, you will produce a base load of power. And this is what's needed to replace coal-fired energy generation in a place like Logansport. The wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine, but as long as you feed this system feedstock, you'll produce power. The market potential in North America is huge. As you can see, Canada and the United States thermally treat very little of their waste. Other countries are far ahead of us. The technology that I use is from the European Union, where they're treating up to 90% of their waste. Uh, in Germany, landfills have been closed. You cannot put raw waste in a landfill. You have to do something to it first, like thermal treatment. This is why we don't think we'll have any problem finding feedstock for this plant. We're already in negotiations on a few contracts in anticipation of approval of this project. The technology that we use is a proven technology. There are many gasification plants operating around the world, just not very many in the U.S. Sweden, Finland, Austria, they all have gasification plants operating and producing energy. As was said previously, the pyrolyzer concept is a combination of already proven technologies. Feedstock preparation is well proven in this country. There are many material recycle facilities operating. They're called MRF systems, which separate the metal and glass and rocks and leave behind the carbon-based material from the MSW that can be used as energy. Unfortunately, here in the U.S., a lot of those systems are incinerators and they're burning this waste, which causes a lot of air pollution. The pyrolysis gasification is proven again in these other countries. And power generation that we use is a cogeneration type, which was described earlier, where we feed gas to a gas turbine, generate electricity. The waste heat from the gas turbine goes to a boiler, generates steam. That steam goes to a steam turbine, which generates more electricity. And that's called combined cycle generation. The growth of gasification is ramping up as we speak. This technology is catching on because it's cleaner than incineration and also provides more energy per ton of feedstock processed. As was mentioned earlier, the partners that we have are billion-dollar multinational corporations. I won't read this list again out of respect for your time, but every partner we have is a billion-dollar company. So we expect this to be very successful, and these companies that are partnering with us also expect it to be successful, and they hope that we build many more of these. The objectives here at Logansport is to utilize carbon-based feedstocks like plastic, rubber, wood, municipal solid waste to produce a synthesis gas that we call pyrogas. I'll show you later in the presentation a analysis of pyrogas and why we've trademarked our type of gas, because it's different than any other synthesis gas that's being produced. We produce electricity with the pyrogas. We recycle the things that don't make gas, like metal and glass and the char. These give us more income streams, and this is the secret to the system and why we can sell electricity at a low cost, because we have other income producing elements to this plant. The benefits to Logansport will actually reduce your electric costs below 5.5 cents per kilowatt hour. We will attract new industry to the city because of the low energy rates, and also, I think, because you will be providing renewable energy. There are companies that want to locate in a place where they're using renewable energy and not fossil energy. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the influx of those types of businesses. We'll save 30 jobs at LMU and create at least 25 new jobs. And these are permanent jobs. During the construction, there will probably be 4 or 5 times this many jobs. Those will be temporary jobs over the period of construction. We'll discontinue the coal power generation, which will bring Logansport within permit limits for permits that are issued today. You won't have to be grandfathered in. You won't have to worry about the coal emissions anymore. We'll reduce landfill waste from wherever our feedstock comes from, which will benefit other communities in this region. This is a project structure that I've gone over in detail already, but basically the project owner will be its own company. I've named it Logansport Power Partners in this graphic, and we'll have investors, contractors to build it. LMU will operate it under a contract with Pyrolyzer, and then we'll have the city of Logansport as the power customer for the majority of the power. We may sell the excess power on the grid. And there's also the renewable energy market for the energy that we produce from renewable fuel. What we are proposing is a slow pyrolysis gasification system. This is a picture of our demonstration plant in Germany. It is not incineration. We heat the material externally. There's no oxygen or air added, so there cannot be any burning or combustion. I bring this up because I've read in your local paper that this is an incineration system. It is not an incineration system. The reason we formed this company was to stop incineration in the United States and in North America. So no matter what you hear later this evening, this is not incineration. I can prove that, and don't let anyone tell you different. The technical advantages of this system are that it's lower cost because we don't generate all of the air emissions that an incinerator does. So we don't have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars cleaning up that air before it's released into the atmosphere. We don't generate those toxins, so we don't have to treat them to begin with. So the system cost is lower than an incinerator. It's more efficient. It has higher energy output. We don't waste any of the energy. Very low emissions, not incineration. The pyrogas production, I've got some figures here for those of you that are interested in the technical aspects. We're very close to natural gas energy levels, and we're exactly like natural gas in cleanliness of the gas. So when we do combust the pyrogas, there are no harmful emissions that come from the combustion. It's very similar to natural gas. So any precautions that we take with natural gas combustion, we'll take with pyrogas combustion. Again, we have 100% backup capacity on this plant using natural gas as a substitute fuel. We'll put in the infrastructure required to run the plant 100% on natural gas. And we'll do that on occasion when we have to do maintenance or if there are unforeseen issues with the gasification plant or the RDF plant that are in front of the gasifiers. Another picture of the demonstration plant in Islandburg. We ran GE engines on the gas. These are the green containers that you see in the foreground. You can see the gasifier in the background. This plant run on a mixture of wood and plastic. It met all European Union emission standards and water permit standards. This is a 3D depiction of our commercial design. This is a module. Your plant will have 7 of these modules. The reason we know this will work is because these modules have been built. They've already worked. We're just adding more modules to make more gas to make the amount of power that you require here in Logansport. Again, the system is extremely environmentally friendly. Other gasifiers produce tars and oils in the gas. We have a patented process for cleaning those out of the gas and cracking them and making more gas. That's why our system is the most efficient one on the market. I think it's the reason that your evaluation team selected us, and it is certainly the reason that our investors are backing us, because this is the system that should succeed in North America. It's the best available technology for converting waste into energy. There are no harmful emissions from this because there's no oxygen and there's no combustion. I know I'm repeating that over and over, but apparently I need to do that here in Logansport. The CO2 exhaust that you'll get from the gas turbines is very similar to natural gas power plant operations. Virtually all the waste is converted into pyrogas or char. This char is useful because it has heat value as a substitute for coal. We're in discussions with cement plants to take this char and they can use it in their kilns to substitute for coal, and then they get to claim that it's a renewable energy feedstock as well. We're extremely flexible with what we can use. I've listed a few things here, and this also speaks to the fact that we will not lack for feedstock. We can use anything that's available. We call these opportunity fuels. What we try to do is find these types of things in the local area so that we don't have to spend a lot of money shipping them in here. So we're going to try to find things that are local, and we can get it here cheaply and use it as fuel. We can use almost anything. This is why we have trademarked our pyrogas. As you know, methane is natural gas. When someone tells you that you're making syngas, the classic definition for syngas is carbon monoxide and hydrogen. As you can see, our gas, we retain all the volatile components that are in a feedstock. We have ethane, propane, as well as carbon monoxide, hydrogen, and methane. So all of these things are volatile and they'll burn like natural gas. And this is why our system is very efficient, and we make a lot of energy from the feedstock that we bring in. The reason I wanted to show you this slide is because in an earlier session I answered some questions about how can I make power so cheaply if Duke can't do it, or others have to charge more. It's because this type of plant generates income in a lot of different ways. Tipping fees, for one thing. We get paid to take the waste that we use as fuel. In Logansport, this is going to be a 50-50 revenue with power. So half of our income is going to be from tipping fees that will be paid when the feedstock comes to us. From that feedstock, we'll have recycling revenues of metal and glass that will separate out of it. After that separation, we go to the gasifier, and again, we'll produce gas that will make power, but we'll also have the recycling revenues from the char. We can sell that because it has heat value. The power generation we can sell. The waste heat will go to a boiler, and we'll run a steam turbine and make more power, which we can sell. And there are also carbon credits and renewable energy credits available for this type of an operation, because it's either carbon neutral or carbon negative, depending on what we do with the exhaust from the gas turbine. In conclusion, we feel that the pyrolyzer gasification system is the most cost-effective renewable energy option, bar none. And I'm talking about solar, wind, hydro. This is the most cost-effective way to make renewable energy. Very low environmental impact. We give you base load power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You won't notice a difference in your homes and businesses. The power will be on all the time, just like it is now. We can do peak power. That helps us to sell the energy at a higher price because we can store energy and turn on power whenever someone's willing to pay more for it. It's a very small footprint. We don't need, 200 acres. We could probably put this on 10 to 20 acres. We can use the multiple feedstocks, ensuring our success because we'll never run low on feedstock. And we've got worldwide projects in development, and we hope that Logansport is one of those projects. Here's my contact information. I welcome anyone to call. I think the more you know about our system, the more you'll like it, so I'll answer every question honestly. There's really nothing to hide about this system. And with that, I'll ask for your questions.
When you say store power, you don't mean you're not storing electricity, you're storing what, the solid waste? And then you can produce that power?
Well, what we would do is we could either store oil or gas so that it would be available to feed into the system and start a turbine.
That was another question I had. Can you actually store this gas?
You
Or do
can,
you?
to a point. I'm sure you've heard of liquefied natural
Yes.
gas. You can do the same thing with this. Another way that we store energy is by siphoning off some of the oil instead of cracking it and making more gas. At that moment, we'll store it, and then when we need gas, we'll feed it back into the system and turn it into gas. And that'll allow us to give peaking power if the business case supports that.
So the only thing that comes, we turn solid waste into your gas, char, steam, and is there anything else come out besides what comes out the exhaust, which is low emissions?
The recycle, metal and glass and things
But
like that.
besides the char, after you pyrolyze
That's it.
That's it. It's amazing.
Frank, what's the largest plant that you guys have run nonstop for a period of a year?
We don't have a plant that we've run that way. We have a pilot plant that we use for demonstration and feedstock testing. And our demonstration plant that you saw pictures of, it ran continuously for, I think, 1,600 hours before the contract was canceled due to financial reasons. It was a plant we tried to sell. The buyer couldn't finish paying for the development of the plant, so that project failed financially. So what we've done to correct that is now we're building and owning and operating plants, which is what we want to do here, which this will be a build, operate, transfer. So we're relying on our own funding, which we know that won't fail.
Right. So you have a lot, and I don't disagree. I think your concept is brilliant and forward thinking, especially in the conservation biology world. But
thank you.
You have a lot of statements that say we feel and we're confident that, but you don't have any feedback from the EPA at all on any of your plants because you don't have one in the United States. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have been permitted twice in the European Union, and the standards there are more stringent than the U.S.
Okay, that was my next question. I know that you had referenced that you guys meet all European emission and water. I didn't know what the trade-off was versus the EPA. So, and then my third question I had, and you alluded to it during your presentation, when you talk to us, you're talking about 4,000 to 6,000 tons a week that it'll take of waste to provide the energy. Is that correct?
No, that's per day.
Per day.
Yes.
Per day. And you have began negotiations to secure some of this pending the approval of the contract here?
Yes, we've made some contacts. We can't enter into any agreements yet because we really don't have a place for this to go. But we are talking to people, and again, there's plenty of feedstock out there. It may turn out that we don't bring in that much MSW. We bring in, something else, tires or plastic or biomass that will equal the total amount that we need per day.
Right. I mean, like anything, that'll be a negotiation, and the thing that that scares me for our community is once people realize we're essentially counting on their waste or tires or whatever, they're going to stop paying tipping fees and say, well, we'll give it to you, or you're going to have to pay to take it. That frightens me.
Well, what we do to try to prevent that is we have long-term agreements, and we make them with reputable organizations. And we feel from the initial contacts we've made that other cities would like to be involved with this. They would like to say that their waste isn't going in the landfill, it's making renewable energy in Logansport.
Right, and that makes perfect sense logically. My last question, you refer to at the flip of a switch, if we have issues with the plant, you can run on natural gas. Do you have that at the test burn plant, that you've tested that technology, or is that simply theory, we can do it, but we haven't done it yet?
I haven't done it, but it has been done by GE and Siemens. They have facilities that are not my facilities, but it's their equipment that I'm planning to use, that they've switched back and forth from syngas to natural gas. So that system will be purchased from them, and it'll be up to them to put it in and train us how to operate it. But I'm counting on that flexibility.
Okay. That's all I have. Thanks.
I have a quick question, if I might. It just occurred to me, and I don't know that I've heard anyone say, but there's been lots of discussion about the possibility of, if need be, flipping over to natural gas. Is a connection for natural gas part of your plan so that it is there, or, okay?
Absolutely. We have to put in that infrastructure. It depends on which site we eventually select on, what that will look like.
Sure, I understand that.
Frank, I'm curious. I noticed on the chart of fuel that tires is the highest energy. Do you like tires, or do they have problems in your system?
No, we love tires.
Okay.
It's our best feedstock, and your observation is correct. Not only does it give you as much energy as coal per pound, it also gives you a very valuable char, because the char from a tire is carbon black, and carbon black prices are also going through the roof. And we also recover the steel from the tire. It's little 2-inch pieces of wire, but still it's high-grade steel, which sells for a good price. So we love tires.
The last I heard, tires was a big problem. They were stacking up everywhere, so I would think you would have a lot of tires available. I don't know how hard it is to get them here, but...
Yeah, we hope to, and again, if we can find those situations where it's a problem, then we can get whoever's having the problem to bring them to us.
So that's good for your system.
Yes.
All right.
I'm on the Cass County Solid Waste Board, and we spend several $1,000s every year trying to get rid of tires. So this would be a big help for our solid waste district.
That's all I got.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Frank.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to ask Richie Halfacre and Brian Zimmerman, who represent ASME Council 62, specifically Local 339, that represents the employees at the LMU electric generating plant, to come forward.
You'll be glad to know I'm just an old union guy, so I don't have a PowerPoint, so I'll be brief. So I want to first thank Mayor Franklin, President Buck, and the other council members for allowing me the opportunity to speak on such an important matter. Like Paul said, I'm Richie Halfacre. I'm the staff representative for American Federation of State County Municipal Employees Council 62, and I also represent the employees of LMU ASME Local 339. They're public employees. They're good union people, and a lot of them are here tonight, and I want to recognize them for what they do for the citizens of Logansport. I also want to thank the citizens of Logansport for giving me the opportunity to speak. Since I'm not a resident here, I live in Kokomo, so I do appreciate the opportunity from the residents to allow me to speak on behalf of my brothers and sisters. You have before you today a great opportunity to move Logansport forward. The project with Proalyzer is a $600 million investment that will not only protect the jobs that my members have now, but also create an additional 25 or more jobs at this new generating plant. I understand that some have questions about this, as I was at the LMU board meeting, and it has never been done before. But as I drove into town today, I noticed utility pole after utility pole, and I wondered how many people thought that was a bad idea years ago also. So we have to move forward. You must act now to save these middle-class jobs. In an economy that is still struggling, I would hope that a city like Logansport would not turn their backs on this type of an investment. As a union, as a union, we have already built a partnership with not only this company, but with Frank Canterbury, the CEO. This is a positive partnership, and we are working together to protect our jobs and create new ones for the citizens of Logansport. We are meeting on a weekly basis to make this project work, not just for our members, but for the taxpayers of Logansport as well. I had the opportunity yesterday to be on Capitol Hill and spoke with Senator Joe Donnelly and filled his staff in on such a huge investment for the city of Logansport. It is not every day you have this chance to take such a bold move, and I would hope that you would vote yes on this project so that we can move forward together. Now is not the time for delay. It is time for bold, creative action, and I ask that you help me so that I can help protect so that we can protect our middle-class jobs and our union brothers and sisters here in Logansport. I wanted to add, all of this has been provided to us and has been sent to our international union in Washington, D.C. That's what I was out there for this week, and so they have reviewed it. Our international union is on board with this project also. So I appreciate the opportunity, Mayor and Council, to speak, and I'll introduce Brian Zimmerman, our president here.
Like I said, my name is Brian Zimmerman. I've been a wastewater treatment plant lab analyst for almost 27 years. I've been involved in the union about that whole time. I'm now the acting president. You know, over the last several years, we've faced a lot of challenges, mainly at the generating plant and LMU as a whole. You know, it all started, our fights began with deregulation. That could have very well put us out of business at that time. Luckily, that didn't go through. We fought a couple buyouts of LMU, which we didn't think was a good idea for the citizens. And then most recently, we fought against having Duke supply all of our power, which we thought was a bad idea for the citizens. You know, I have a hard time believing, you know, how great a deal. Of course, we want to save our jobs. That's number one. We want to save our jobs, and we want to add more jobs. But I'm a citizen of this town too. I want to see this town grow. You know, and what a great thing to actually get rid of trash and make power out of it. You know, we get rid of our own trash. We get rid of other communities' trash. You know, what a grand scheme. I think, you know, this is going to make Logansport, like Charlie said. You know, I'm not from the 60s, I'm from the 70s. But, you know, when I graduated from high school, there were jobs everywhere. I could walk out of one and go into another one. And these weren't minimum wage jobs, these were good paying jobs here in town. I really want that to happen again. I want that to happen to Logansport. You know, my family's here, and I want us to prosper. And I think this is our best opportunity. You know, I think is what's in front of the council right now and the mayor, this is maybe the most important decision you'll ever make. This could separate Logansport from a lot of other communities that want good paying jobs. You know, this is our opportunity. You know, and I always take pros and cons. What if pyrolyzer doesn't pan out? What if it never generates any power? Well, we go back to square one. You know, we know the generating plant's going to close. We can't afford the $100 million and invest in it. You know, so we end up buying our power. You know, ultimately we go back to where we're starting. So, but just what if, and I really think it will happen, what this could do to our community. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Richie and Brian.
Are there any other questions for anyone that you've heard as far as the team is concerned? Thank you very much.
All right, at this time, we have about 20 people that have signed up and have expressed a desire to speak. In the interest of time, we want to make sure that everybody's given fair opportunity. Having said that, we're going to allot about 5 minutes for each person that wishes to speak. I'm sorry? Yeah, if you would line up in the order that you plan to speak, somebody go first and somebody take a position after that. If we could use the chair immediately next to Alvaro, that would be our on-deck position. And whoever wants to go first, please step up to the microphone at this time. Please come on up. When you arrive at the microphone, please state your name and address for the record.
Next person can go to the chair.
Bill Beal, 107 Longtree Lane here in Logansport. I was plant manager at S-Rock Cement for 15 years, have been retired for close to 20. I came here tonight on the fence of what to go, and I was most interested in how the process works. That's been my business, how to make things work, complicated processes. The presentation by, I forget people's names, the last presentation was excellent and answered a tremendous amount of my questions. Making these kind of gases is a long used process. I remember as a kid, my mother cooked with gas. I thought it was natural gas. No, it was producer gas. It wasn't the same as this, but it's along the same way. We didn't go to natural gas in the eastern part of the country until after the First World War. My main concerns that remain is the vast amount of material that's going to be received and how that's going to handle. I think once we get it, they get it to the pyrolyzer. It's a piece of cake. Before that is getting railroads. I've dealt with railroads. At the cement plant, we could unload 10 cars of cement, 10 cars of coal a day. In the summertime, we could unload 1 car of coal in February. So they're going to have to deal with wet material. It doesn't have to be very wet, coming in by railroad, and there's hope they can deal with that. I see that as a major concern, and storage of it, and the volume of waste you get. There's good uses for it, but you also got to get rid of it. Those are my main concerns. I had a lot more when I walked in the door today, but they were answered, and if they can address those, I think we have a good program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beal.
Thank you.
I want to say something quickly. The cars that come in, they've already told us that the solid waste will be in sealed containers, and they're not opened up until they actually get inside the plant.
They still freeze.
But it's been brought up about the odors and everything, so I just wanted to bring that up, that they are sealed. Thank you.
Are they going to load the containers with trash?
But if you would, please come up, pull the microphone a little closer to you so everybody can hear, and state your name and address.
All right. My name is Doran Heimlich. I live at 851 Walnut Ridge East here in Logan. My husband and I are native Loganites, I guess you call us. We both were born here. We've lived here all our lives. We never moved. All right? And some of these things bothered me. I'm a homemaker, and I'm a senior citizen, and I don't know anything about engineering. But there are things that we talked about tonight that bother me, being a senior citizen, all right? And perhaps they can be discussed later, but I wanted to bring them to your attention is all. All right. Now, the first thing that bothered me was the fact that this company is not American. It's out of the country. They do not have one here in the United States that is working where it can be looked at, all right? That bothered me. And the other thing that bothered me was, what in the devil are you going to do if something happens and we lose them or they lose us? How can you go to court? You don't know whether or not you're going to be an American court or a German court, or whether you could get anybody to do anything nowadays. You just never know what's going to happen anymore, because Jim and I are old enough that we've seen things happen, especially in the last couple years. Now that bothered me. Now, let's see here. Are they going to use some of our builders here in town to build this so that our natives will have a job? Are they going to use them? Or are they bringing their own crew in and not going to ask any of our natives to build? Because sometimes businesses do that. That bothered me, all right? Now, where are they going to make these little pellets that we're going to burn? Or is it pellets? Now, all that I know is what I've read in the paper. Now, whether or not it was correct, I have no way of knowing. And I understand, I thought it was pellets that they were going to burn. Well, where are they going to make them? Are they going to make them off of our new highway that's coming in town in a year? That's not going to look very good. I didn't know. Of course, you said the stuff was going to be in a cylinder. So they're going to have to fill that cylinder someplace. Are they going to do it here? Now, the other thing I wanted to know is, where they fill these, is it going to smell? And is it going to make a lot of noise? Like the fans are making noises and people are complaining, and somebody I read in the paper was getting a headache from all the fans that they had up in the air, you know, because they're vibrating. I wondered about that.
Are you speaking of wind turbines?
Yes, wind turbines. Okay. I didn't know what to call them. I forget their name. Yeah. I've got some ears on me, you know. Okay.
This does not include any wind turbines.
Well, I just know that they make a noise.
Mrs. Heimlich, you have about 1 minute left.
Oh, only got 1 minute left. All right, let's see. Oh, I already got one answered about natural gas. Now, the trash trucks. Years ago, I had a bad foot and had to have surgery in Kokomo, and I was back and forth in Kokomo for several months, my husband and I in our car, and that was when New Jersey was bringing all their trash to our landfill. And the men were not covering the trucks. There was trash from Kokomo all the way to Morgan Hill, along the road and out in the fields, and that went on for 3 or 4 years before they got Indiana legislature to stop it. And all the driver had to do was stop the truck and get up there and pull the cover, and he never did. And we were a mess. And that really ticked me off. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. I would ask whoever the next speaker is or whoever wants to speak next to please go ahead and move up to the next chair. It'll save some time. No,
Yeah.
yes, you did. Thank you very much.
My name's Terry Sarver, and I'm a ratepayer and employee of Logansport Utilities. Live at 3229 East, 450 North here in Logansport. I am a Democrat. I'm a strong supporter of renewable energy. I've put my money where my mouth is. I understand electricity. Indiana has become a leader in renewable energy. We have roughly 1,600 megawatts of wind turbines and growing. We're a leading producer of biofuels. Indianapolis International Airport just announced a 10 megawatt solar farm. It'll be built and developed using a public-private partnership agreement, or a PP3, which I'm sure you're all aware of. It'll be the biggest airport solar farm in North America. This biomass gasification plant that we're talking about will be the largest in the U.S. Logansport will be the point of the spear of renewable energy. In 2006, I installed a 1.3 kilowatt turbine, real small one at my house. There were no wind farms in Indiana at that time. People kind of laughed, but the system still produces power to this day with minimal maintenance. The turbine will pay for itself this summer. I've heard people say it won't work before. Let's be dynamic and try something new. Most utilities put out a long-range plan document for their planning. All the ones I've read are looking to generate electricity using wood, biomass, and landfill gas in the near future to get rid of coal. I spoke to people at Duke when I was putting my small turbine in. They said it wouldn't never work in Indiana, but now they're scrambling to buy renewable energy to meet the new renewable portfolio standards, or RPS standards, that are coming in the near future. Let's get ahead of the curve with this gasification technology. There is no such thing as clean coal. And if the bulk of your electricity generation comes from pulverized mine mouth power plants, they will be at a disadvantage in the future. Biomass will generate electricity in the U.S. It's a matter of when, not if. Everybody's looking at it. There's just a few things I'm sure of. One is I don't know much about legal documents. Two, I shake my head when I consider the politics of all this because I don't understand it all. Three, I'm thankful for the opportunity to give my opinion on this matter. If I worked for Duke, these decisions would be made in private where nobody could hear, and I'd probably get fired for speaking my mind. And four, I'm sure I want to leave my children a cleaner planet, so I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you, Terry.
Mike Berkshire, 528 Main Street, Logansport, Indiana. I was tired of standing up in the back of the room, so I thought I'd come up and occupy the seat. Hello, everyone. Long time no see. As far as I know, almost all the questions I have has been answered. The plant's going to be owned by another company, but it's going to be manned by LMU employees. They're going to be LMU union employees, is my understanding. LMU will be buying the electricity from the plant and reselling it to the citizens of Logansport, if I understand that correctly. And LMU will still maintain its obligations to the city, such as owning this building, maintaining this building, and owning and maintaining the distribution system. That was my only concern. So other than that, everyone have a nice Valentine's Day. I'm sure the dinners are waiting for you when you get home.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
And you were worried.
Not at all.
Hi there. Hi. Mercedes Brew, 1315 East Market Street. Thank you for having this public meeting and hearing our comments. I hope that you are...
Can you move the microphone closer?
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear now in the back? That's better.
Thank you. I hope that you are also planning to have the public meeting that is described in the RFP when you have the best and final offer. Regarding the definition of incineration, I prefer to use the EPA and the European Union's definition of incineration. If another person prefers to use the salesman's definition, I guess that's their privilege. Why am I so suspicious? I came out of the November Utility Service Board meeting wondering, what just happened? At that meeting, the rate study was presented regarding the master plan, the plan that recommended that we convert our current coal-fired generators to natural gas so that we could produce electricity cheaper than what we pay Duke. The rate study said a 95% increase. Utility Service Board agreed that was impossible, and right on cue, William Lynn James's group made their presentation. Mr. Hartman said that LMU had spent $250,000 getting to the RFP stage, and the board voted to request proposals. That was the November LMU meeting, Utility Service Board meeting. So, as of November, we have the Crow-Horwath study's 95% increase that has been used to repeatedly justify throwing the master plan out the window and embarking on this whole new direction. But it's apparent that LMU spent $250,000 to start on this whole new direction before the rates for the master plan alternatives were available. It is disappointing that money has been spent in secret before the rate study was done, and that study supposedly is the basis for this new project. Well, maybe I'm just paranoid. So I got a copy of the master plan, the Crow-Horwath rate study, the William Lynn James brochure, the request for proposals, and finally the pyrolyzer proposal, and read them. The master plan is good work. The Utility Service Board should be commended for hiring Lutz, Daly, and Brain. The Crow-Horwath rate study, I could never figure out why there was such a discrepancy between the alternatives and the numbers put forth in the master plan and the rates that Crow-Horwath came up with. I could not make heads or tails of it. So I moved on to the William Lynn James brochure, and I call it a brochure because it's, makes a lot of statements but doesn't back them up. Affordable energy production from renewable fuel. That sounds good. Everybody should support that. Well, it takes a little bit of digging and you find that the renewable fuel includes plastic, which obviously is not renewable because it's made from petroleum. So, but they have to have the plastic to get the high heat value. So, fudging a little bit there. And on page 4, they quote a paragraph, and I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but at the end of the paragraph it says, then the decision to adopt new fuel technologies is not only sensible, it is imperative. LMU, Electrical System Master Plan, 2012. That statement, that sentence, that paragraph is not in this master plan. There is nothing remotely like that in this master plan. So I think that's serious. If you are making the foundation of your argument a made-up quote that you are attributing to an expert, that's serious. And if somebody can show me where that is in the master plan, I will apologize, but I read it several times. I read the RFP. It's a good RFP, but you're not following it. If you were, we wouldn't be here today. All 6 proposals should have been judged non-responsive to the RFP within days of being opened. The pyrolyzers should have been kicked out because they don't have the experience that the RFP rightly demands. Charts and certifications are all very nice, but they do not make up for the fact that pyrolyzer does not have a continuous running facility. Actually, I'm wondering why we're still talking and why the consultant's meter is still running. I've even heard of talk of going to Germany. I'd like to go to Germany. But there's not a continuous run plant in Germany to see because pyrolyzer doesn't have one. Page 14 of their proposal.
Mercedes, thank you very much. The time is 5 minutes, 22 seconds. Thank you. No.
we listen to your people for an hour and a half, and you give us 5 minutes.
This is a city council meeting, and for the mayor to declare there's a limit on what people who live in this town have to say is undemocratic. It would be interesting to have a show of hands of how many people are being paid right now for being here. That would be telling. Members of the city council, there are 4 things I intend to bring to your attention. I will do my best to keep it to 5 minutes. First, the city invoked Article 23 of the Public-Private Agreement Law when it issued the requests for proposals, RFPs, for this trash incineration last November. It's important to note the city has no authority to use the Public-Private Agreement Law because you, as a council, have not previously adopted the provision of Article 23. The law requires that you have adopted this public-private law before you issue any RFPs. I reviewed city council resolutions and ordinances back to 1997 when the public-private law went into effect all the way up till now, and you have no authorizing resolution or ordinance for what you're doing, or to even issue RFPs in the first place. Everything you have done up to this point in this matter is outside of your authority. In municipal law, it's called ultra vires, and if we have a court case, we'll cover that matter. My second point, the pyrolysis LLC proposal includes shutting down our generation plant over on the river. You are disposing of what is known as non-surplus, municipally owned utility property, and the law requires you as a council to appoint 3 appraisers, to give a public notice, have a public hearing, and within 30 days before that hearing, after you give notice, if sufficient number of citizens oppose what you're doing, then it's not your vote. It belongs on a referendum at the next general or special election. My third point, respectfully, here is the RFP law. Here is the BOT law. You are not following that law. This public hearing within that law, 52359, is supposed to happen after you have a proposal in hand. You don't have your BOT agreement. You don't have your power purchase agreement. You don't have any agreement. This is not the public hearing that you're supposed to have. Those things are supposed to be done. You do your negotiation. You come up with what's called the last best offer. Then you open the proposals. The service board decides whether it's going to make a recommendation to you. That's how it's supposed to work. The service board did not write any statement of its own that is the basis for what they sent you. This memorandum of understanding which they sent you at their meeting was the only thing that they decided to send. They themselves, the board, said, we are not voting on anything of substance tonight. They're just sending the memorandum of understanding to you. Your ordinance, 2013-07, is illegal because you are presuming not to send these matters back to the service board. It's the service board's business what goes into the BOT. How are the rates going to be determined? What are the costs going to be? The service board could still determine to stop all this, and your ordinance does not take that into consideration. It's all based upon the BOT law, the RFP law. You got 2 lawyers sitting up there. They know how to find the page. This is not just politics, it's also law. The last point.
You got about 28 seconds, Jim.
Undemocratic. Mr. Scump has delivered this scare tactic of 95% increase at the mayor's request. Mr. Scump has previously been chastised by the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission because of his poor methodology. Look what the problem is here. If we were doing this question in Indianapolis, the citizens would have a representative. Who's protecting the citizens here? In Indianapolis, when somebody asks for a rate increase, you have a consumer counselor. None of you have questioned Mr. Scump. Nobody on the service board questioned him. The point is, there are three basic flaws. Just to go to alternative A. He did not
5
get
minutes,
his number.
30 seconds. I'm sorry, your time's up. I'm sorry, Jim. We're allotting 75 minutes so that everybody has a chance to say something. You've made several very good points. We will continue
I
to
don't
research
care,
them.
Mayor, if you think they're good points.
Thank-
The point is, if other citizens give me their time, that's what they do in the Congress, and
We're
that's
not in
legitimate.
Congress. Time's
That's
up.
for sure.
Thank you. Next speaker.
No, I'm not done. The point is, Mr. Scump says that it takes $30 million. Oh, look, the police. Isn't this interesting?
No, we're not asking the police to remove you. We're just asking that you cease so that we give somebody else the opportunity.
This is an abuse of due process.
Thank you.
The citizens have a right to speak, and using law enforcement officers that we pay for to enforce your limitation is unreasonable, and I hope that people study more. And I'm sorry I didn't get to finish what I had to say, because there's more to know. Back off.
Thank you very much.
That was just for you.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. Anybody want to shake a little and get a little unstiff? You know, my name is Pam Lehman, 4911 Canterbury Lane. You know, it's my understanding that LMU, and getting down to things that I feel are really important in the community, that LMU will be able to retain generating plant employees and increase actually that count of employees by almost 100%. You know, these jobs will add to the local economy, to the tax base, to the money spent in the community. It can mean new homes, you know, buying homes currently that are on the market and supporting the businesses that are in our community. Without this project, the current jobs will be eliminated, and those employees currently paying taxes will be looking for new jobs. We don't want that. With the state of our local economy, the future employment prospects are dim at best. With Prolysur, and you know, I've heard it say Prolysur, so if I'm pronouncing it wrong, forgive me, proposal and the public-private partnership, the investor is going to take on the burden of the cost and the liability for this project. With the Prolysur plant located in Cass County, the tax money generated will improve life for all of Cass County citizens. The investor has stated the contract will include costs to update the transmission infrastructure owned by LMU. These improvements will give LMU a redundant source of energy in the event of a major shutdown of the Prolysur plant. I had a lot more to say, but I'm kind of, you know, skipping over a lot because I don't have time. But LMU will enter into a contract with the investor to provide operating and maintenance for the Prolysur plant for a monthly cost that will cover payroll and benefits. This reduction in LMU's operating budget could decrease the cost per kilowatt hour for the ratepayer. How will this affect Cass County? You know, what I've, observed with the anticipated lower electric rates along with more jobs, Cass County will realize an economic boom. Established companies can expand their businesses with lower energy costs. Based on those same low energy costs, Cass County will be in a position to attract new business. During construction of the plant, the influx of labor forces will be spending money in our community. More business, more taxes paid, more money spent. Who wins and who loses? If we do nothing to try and change the course for LMU, the users could potentially stand to have a 95% increase in electric rates. Why would we not try to do what the consultants have agreed to be the best move for Logansport? So there isn't a plant like this up and running in the United States. Why can't Logansport be the first? Why wait for another city to do this when we could be on the leading edge? Logansport has stood still far way too long. It's time we move forward while we have forward-thinking people at the helm. In closing, I would like to say that I know personally that the LMU board has been working on an alternative solution to our energy since at least 2009, and I have the utmost confidence in the abilities of our board of directors of LMU. You know, John Davis, Todd Miller, Dan Slusher, Jay King, Martin Monahan, and our superintendent Paul Hartman. We have a highly qualified LMU board. They all have spent countless hours in researching and studying alternative solutions since I know at least 2009, with one thing in mind: doing what's best and providing the most effective way for our community to proceed. They have not taken this responsibility lightly, and I commend them, and I will stand behind whatever decisions they make in providing a solution for Logansport. Thank you.
Thank you. Please hold the applause. Please hold the applause. Next speaker.
Good evening, Dave Kitchell, 1423 North Street. Appreciate the comments that Mrs. Lehman just made. I would note, however, that Mrs. Lehman came to us from Kokomo, Indiana, where this similar concept was studied by Mayor Goodnight and their administration, and their determination after consulting with folks who were in the know was that they could not get the trash stream that they needed to run the operation that they wanted. So that would seem to contradict what we're here to do tonight. I don't have anything against Mr. Canterbury or his concept. I think he's doing a great thing. But we're making a $450 million decision here. We're making a decision that's not entirely been based on great information at times. And we have to make it based on good, solid, strong information. And part of the thing with this model is the rates that we're going to be in effect in the next 2 years. Now, it may not mean much to us to pay $10 more, but if you're on the line at Federal Mogul or at Tyson or Logan Stampings or any number of other plants, the ethanol plant, think how much 1 hour is going to be in power for them, for groceries that run 24/7, 365, that pay every cent of every day. If we don't reduce their rates, we're hurting them. And we owe it to them to give them the lowest rate possible, whether we burn trash or we burn bricks from the Greensfelder building. We've got to do more to help them out. I don't begrudge you for falling in love with an economic development project. I hope you do. But the greatest economic development we can give these folks right now is to lower their rates. Give the folks that live here more spendable income in their rates. Don't put senior citizens on no air conditioning in the summertime because they can't afford it. Let the commercial people who are out there running a business on their own, even fire extinguisher sales, let them make money because they have lower rates. You know, Mayor Franklin did a great job when he was utility committee chairman on this council. He sat where you sat, and he investigated every possible option, from IMPA to NIPSCO to PSI, and we're not doing it right now because we're not doing the due diligence. And we're not doing right by our taxpayers. We're not doing right by ratepayers if we don't look at every possible option. We have to do that. And if Ted Franklin were on the Board of Works today as a fireman and said, I'm going to award a contract to a company that makes a fire truck that's never been manufactured in the United States today, that has no safety rating, that's going to cost us over $100,000, I think we'd question his judgment. I think he'd question his judgment. And I think you should question the judgment that's being made in this process right now. I know you want to do the right thing. We're all Logansport people here. None of us have made a $450 million decision. If you're going to make it, and if you think IMPA is not the right choice, then let them have their time and let them come in. Let Indiana and Michigan come in. Let whoever wants to come in. But do the due diligence that Mayor Franklin's done himself as a councilman. And don't run away with this process, because that's where we're going.
Thank you, Dave.
Hello, my name is Rick Rouser, live in Walton on 218, an LMU customer. I'm also an engineer at Delphi. We work on hybrid vehicles and renewable resources. The thing that scares me about this is, first of all, let me say, I do like the idea. I think it's a great idea. I don't know that I like what I've heard. 1,600 hours of service is 8 weeks. They've only run their unit for 8 weeks. I think we need to hire a consultant that has no skin in the game to see if this is, see if there's any fruition in this concept. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Rick. Are there any other speakers? Any new speakers? Anybody who hasn't spoken already? Is there any more discussion from council? Okay. Okay. There is no more public comment. That's going to conclude the public hearing. It is now officially closed. It's time for the council to start the meeting again. We're in ordinance 2013-07. It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any more discussion by council?
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to table this ordinance until the next meeting. In light of some of the information that's come up this evening, I think that there are questions that we aren't prepared to answer in regards to the legal ramifications of what we're doing, and I think as a council we need more time. I don't disagree with Mr. Kitchell. From November 28th to Valentine's Day, which I missed my date, thanks Mayor, we have 2.5 months to decide the future of $500 million, and that's not a lot of time in whatever industry you're in. So my motion is to table this ordinance till our next meeting.
The motion dies for lack of a second. Is there any further discussion? Call for the vote.
Jeremy Ashcraft,
No.
Bob Bishop,
Yes.
Joe Buck,
Yes.
Gary Fox,
Yes.
Charlie Hastings,
Yes.
Chuck Liddell,
No.
Teresa Popejoy.
Yes.
Ordinance 2013-07 passes on first reading on a vote of 5 in favor, 2 opposed. Are there any board member comments? Is there any miscellaneous business, including matters not already considered? I'm sorry, Mr. Buck?
This does not close the book on it. This only opens the effort to come up with a memorandum of understanding and start negotiations. This will come back to the service board and the council again. So, but I do believe there is a timeline that we need to be looking at, and this does open discussion for that public-private partnership and the BOT. And they will come back to the utility service board and the council again. So we're not slam dunking anything. It's just that we do have an imperative timeline with coal restrictions and everything else.
All right, and I would personally like to thank all of you for taking time out of your schedule to be here tonight and to take the time to educate yourself. It was a very good meeting. We spent 75 minutes on the presentation, and we're still taking questions online. If you have questions, you'd like to submit them, please feel free to do so. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you, council.